Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and much appreciated you guys checking today's video out and spending some time with me, because we're going to be talking about cloudy weather bass fishing today. There's a lot of myths and misconceptions about what bass do in cloudy weather, and what I sort of want to do is sort of go through the 4 seasons of the year and give you guys some tips and advice on how the bass react to cloudy days, because there's a lot to it. I mean, when you're talking about cloudy days, you're talking about the type of cloud for one thing, because sometimes you'll have a raining, super dark type overcast cloudy day. Other days you've got it's cloudy, but the cloud intensity is very light and it's still pretty bright, and then there's everything in between. And the bass relate to that differently and react to that differently based upon water temperature and clarity and stuff like that. So we're going to give you guys a sort of a good foundational benefit that I think is really going to help you all out. Also, guys, real quick, I just wanted to show you one bait that's been working pretty good here around my part of the country the last couple weeks, and that's this 3-inch Megabass Spark shad with the core tackle hover rig head in it. I usually use the 3/32 on this, and this is a really good bait. Just throw it around main lake points, guys. Get out there in 10 to 20 foot of water. As long as you have water visibility, like over 3 foot in your lake, throw this thing out there, let it hit the bottom, and just reel it about a foot off the bottom. It's a good way to catch them, especially if you got spotted bass in your lake. So I'll put my tackle warehouse link in the description to the Spark shad and the hover rig head if you guys are interested in get one. Really appreciate that. Okay, a lot of people have misconceptions about cloudy weather, what fish do. I think a lot of people understand that overall, when you have clouds, fishing is usually better. Anytime that you have a low light situation, bass are usually more aggressive most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. I think a lot of it is they feel safer, almost like the darker cloudy weather acts like some type of an ambush point for them, because bass feed, in my opinion, mainly at night. So they've always been, in my experience, more active during the lower light conditions. And that accumulates at night, because night fishing is the best time to fish unless it's the winter time. I don't know if you guys have ever done much night fishing before, but if you're fishing a lake where the water temperature is over like 55 degrees, fishing is always twice as good at night. Fish are shallower, they're more aggressive. It's just a lot easier to catch them, and I think that's sort of what clouds resemble a little bit. So anyway, let me give you sort of a foundational piece of advice, season by season, how the bass relate to cloudy weather. Now, okay, let's talk about wintertime first. We'll go winter, spring, summer, fall. And when I'm talking about wintertime, I'm talking pretty much like December, January, February, in that range. A lot of people, and this has been my experience again, a lot of people think that for some reason in the wintertime, you need the sun to warm the water up. That is going to make them more active. That's not necessarily true. And hold on one second, guys. I got a text I got to get here from my wife. I'll be right back. Sorry. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I'm back here. Now, like I said, one of the things that you've always heard, or I always heard people say, well, you want some sun in the wintertime to warm the water up, make them more active. That hadn't been the case in my experience, because I do a lot of wintertime fishing, and I like cloudy days in the wintertime. Even if the water is really cold, I've had some of my best days in the wintertime when the water temperature was 40 degrees and it was cloudy or spitting snow or something. So they still bite really good in the wintertime. Hadn't been any problem with that. Now, the only exception to that rule, and this is an exception to the rule in several different scenarios, is if you got some really off-colored water. Off-colored water, or dirty water or muddy water, offsets the benefit that clouds we have. Overall, throughout I don't care what time of year it is if you got muddy water or water visibility, let's say less than 1.5 feet or so, it doesn't help you out any. In fact, sometimes it can hurt you, especially if you have that water visibility that's closer to like 12 inches, like 1 foot or 8 inches. So that's one misnomer. So even in the wintertime, like I said, as long as you've got clear water, clouds will always, help you in that situation. And one of the things that I found out about my wintertime fishing is that even if the water's cold, if it's cloudy, I still catch a lot of fish on moving baits like an Alabama rig or a jerk bait, or even some type of a crankbait if the water temperatures are closer to 50 degrees. Now, in the springtime of the year, this, in my opinion, is the #1 time of year where the clouds will really, really play a big part in terms of catching bigger fish, and lots of them. When that water temperature gets up in the mid 50s, when it's from about 55 to 65 degrees, anywhere between, depending upon the part of the country you're in, anywhere between late February into May, when you get a cloudy day that time of year, that is always going to be outstanding fishing, because during that time of the year, during the pre-spawn and the spawn and the post-spawn, you have more shallow fish that are living shallow in a lake than any other time of the year. Every other time of the year except those 3 months, you have the bass will disperse more, and you've got fish all over. You got fish deep, you got fish suspended, you got fish in the in-between depths. But in that time of year in the spring, when the water's 55 to 65, the vast majority of the bass are shallow and they're more on the bottom. So when you have a big population of shallow fish and you got some cloudy weather and you've got fish wanting to eat and feed up in preparation for the spawn, or they're recuperating for the spawn, this is when those fish really, really fire up and light up on those cloudy days, big time. And again, it's like once you have that water temperature, it's always the moving baits that'll work a little bit better. Now the difference is between like the winter time and the spring is in the springtime of the year, when you have a cloudy day, you want to go big with your lures, like a big spinner bait, a big full-size chatter bait, a glide bait, a big swim bait, something like that, a 3-inch long square bill crank, like a number 3 or 3-inch long square bill crankbait. Large baits, this is the time of year to fish the big bait shallow with power fishing, and especially if you get some clouds in correlation with wind. If you guys are fishing during the pre-spawn, and let's say the water temperature is 57, 58 degrees, and you've got a pretty windy day and it's cloudy, you're going to catch some good ones. That's the primo time to fish with that. Now, what happens in the summertime of the year in terms of clouds, here's another one of those sort of those myths in fishing. It's like you would think, okay, it's cloudy if the water's warmer in the summertime of year, and those clouds are really going to benefit and make the fish bite better because it's cloudy in the summer. This is the least time of the year where clouds benefit you, and it doesn't make sense, because you would think that those low light conditions on the warm water would have a big impact, but it doesn't. It's like I have not noticed in my own fishing any type of benefit from a cloudy day during the summertime of the year at all. And I don't care if I'm fishing ledges deep, or if I'm fishing deep brush piles, or if I'm fishing up the river, shallow cranking in dirty water. I'm not saying it turns the fish off, but there's no benefit to it. It's like I still catch the fish about the same on a cloudy day in the summertime as I do if it's sunny out. But then again, in the fall time of the year, when that water temperature starts dropping again back into the 50s, 60s, which is October, November, first part of December, a lot of lakes across the country, that's when it works good again, because you still, in the fall time of the year, you've got some fish that are dispersed out through different water depths, but you still have a few more fish up shallower in the fall time of the year than you do in the summertime. And those same fish will react to those low light conditions on those cloudy days in the fall time of the year like they do in the spring. That's why in the fall, when you have cloudy days, great topwater fishing, good for shallow water spinner baits, crank baits, glide baits, same type of deals. Like those fish are more secure under those low light conditions. So that's a pretty broad overview of how they are affected during the 4 seasons. Now let's talk a little bit about some of the other variables with it. Like I talked about before, not all clouds are created equal. So when you're talking about in terms of light intensity, your light intensity can vary tremendously based upon the type of cloud it is. You can have one of those days where it's cloudy out, but the clouds are so thin that it almost seems like it's hazy. The light intensity is still bright, even though it's cloudy. And then you can have those other days where it's just super dark and it's raining or it's a thunderstorm, and then everything in between. So in my opinion, the best cloud cover to fish it's in relationship to the water clarity, not necessarily the water temperature that much, but the the intensity of the clouds is relative to the water clarity. So obviously I want those super dark rainy days on the clear water environments. That's going to be the best thing. And then as the water clarity gets a little bit more off colored, that's when those other type of cloudy days can be pretty productive. You know, just a typical overcast day, no rain, you know, you still have some decent light intensity, but it's still cloudy. And that's really good for those water visibilities that are on down to, you know, 1.5 foot, 2 foot, 2 foot, 2.5 foot, sort of in that range. Now, another thing that we'll talk about, and I've mentioned this before in some of my other videos if you've watched it more, is how the bass react, their mood and their personality when it gets cloudy. And this is, and if you missed that part, let me reiterate it because it's worth restating this because this is true. The best days to fish when it's cloudy is the first, maybe second day of the cloud cover. If you've got some type of a weather front coming in or some type of a weather pattern, and say it's been sunny or partly cloudy for a while, and then all of a sudden, boom, you get a cloudy day, that's the day you want to be out there. That first day is going to be the best fishing. The second day is going to be okay, but what you're going to find is if you have some type of a stationary weather pattern, that you got clouds that are lingering for day after day after day. You see this a lot of times, guys, like in the late fall and in the winter time where you have those, where it can be cloudy for weeks on end sometimes. Once you get over about 2 days of cloud cover, those fish will start getting inactive. The clouds do not benefit you like they do when it first starts to get cloudy. So let's say, for example, you're out there fishing and you know the water temperature is perfect, it's 55 degrees, you just got the first day of the clouds in and you rip them on a spinnerbait or whatever you're fishing. Second day you go out there, you're still catching them pretty good. Third day you get out there and you start noticing, well, man, it's still cloudy, man, it's getting a little bit tougher today, and then the next day it's going to get tougher and tougher and tougher. Now that what happens is after a period of cloud cover, those fish do not want to chase. They get dormant a little bit and they tuck down on the bottom. So one good piece of advice I'll give you is if you're fishing, pay attention to how long it's been cloudy, because if it's been over 2 days of cloud cover, you're going to do a lot better if you fish sort of counterintuitively to clouds. In other words, if you fish on the bottom with more finessey techniques. So say, for example, the first day of a cloud cover, I do real good on a crankbait or spinnerbait, and by the third or fourth day of a cloud cover, I'm dragging a football head jig, I'm fishing a shaky head on the bottom, I'm fishing a Ned rig. Those fish, they just don't want to chase, you know, after a couple days of cloud cover like they do, you know, after the first day. I'm not really sure why that is. I mean, it's just one of those mysteries of fishing that we have. But when you're talking in terms of how to approach cloudy day fishing, the things that you have to remember is you have to take in consideration your water temperature and your water clarity, time of year. All those things have a factor in determining your approach with it. But overall, just, you know, just a blanket statement is the fishing is usually always better on a cloudy day most of the time. But there are, you know, deviations to that, like we talked about here in the video. And it's just another one of those things that make bass fishing so great, because you don't want everything where it's like in stone, where you go out and say, okay, it's a cloudy day, I'm gonna catch them on a spinnerbait over here. You know, that's part of the mystery and the wonderment of fishing. It's like these fish don't watch videos or read magazines. They do what they want to do, but you got to have some type of a starting point, and that's sort of a good foundation with it. But if I could give you guys, if I could give you one piece of advice here as far as having some good fishing, a good day on the water, is that here at the time of this video, it's the first week of January. Plan a trip out, guys, for coming up this March, and pay attention to where when you see the water temperature start getting about 55 degrees in your lake that you're fishing in March, look at the weather patterns, look at the weather forecast, and once that water temperature hits 55 degrees, you're going to have some clouds or rain coming in, like on your weather forecast or forecasting, you know, rain or whatever. Get out there, because when that water first starts hitting 55 and you get the first cloudy day after that water temperature hits 55, you're going to catch some big fish. And, you know, throw the big lures, like the big 3/4 ounce spinner baits, full size jig, you know, big square bills, just your power fishing baits, big chatter baits, full-size chatter bait. Get out there like on those channel banks, those areas where those fish are staging, getting ready to spawn. That's probably the best fishing you're going to have all year long. So hope it helps out, guys. We'll talk later.